Federal judge just yesterday ordered Texas to remove river barriers that the state assembled along a stretch of the U.S.-Mexico border to repel migrants, giving the Biden administration an early victory in the lawsuit against those barriers approved by the Republican Governor Greg Abbott. So we want to continue our conversation right here and introduce our next guest, Elaine Wood. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox, attorney and immigration expert with HAYMAN-WOODWARD law firm. Thanks again for being here with us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
So let's get right to it here. This is a win for the Biden administration, but the Texas governor and team will definitely appeal this.
Right. So what we're watching now is the response on the ground in Texas. So Governor Abbott and his squad have until September 15th to move the buoy out of this water.
Okay, and we're just showing some video now of the buoy and the barrier here. This was in an effort to try to slow down the migration here, and maybe explain to us the view from the federal judge that granted the Biden administration here with this win.
So what you're looking at here is hard plastic and razor wire, and what you're not seeing is bodies that have been mutilated by the razor wire. So this is stretching for approximately 3 soccer fields, maybe slightly less. And the idea is that, according to Governor Abbott, this would cut back on the invasion at the southern border. And although some people have identified this structure as a kind of water wall, it is, of course, much more than that, because as the Biden administration identified, this is a humanitarian and environmental crisis. So this buoy structure had actually drifted to the Mexican side of the water. And so the Department of Justice was suing Texas, saying that this structure was violating the Rivers and Harbors Act. And while the merits of the case are still being decided, this, let's call it water wall, is part of a preliminary injunction, right? So a kind of temporary stay, moving it until the final merits are determined.
And now some would say, okay, the migrants are coming here on their own accord and are facing this and, getting hurt on the way here. Because not only of, let's face it, we've been hearing these reports there of just sad things going along the way here that is happening to migrants even before they hit America here. So some would say, they're getting hurt here because, well, they're making this choice to come. What would you say to that?
So you have to imagine what their alternative is. So you have to think about people leaving their homeland out of no choice of their own, right? So reasons for being a refugee by choice is not a thing. So basically it's a kind of forced migration. And so taking that chance through a jungle or taking that chance through some kind of very dangerous area, you have to imagine that is actually preferable to the alternative, which in some claims for asylum, you're saying, I have a fear of past and future persecution. I'm just trying to survive. So people are making that chance because they think that that's better than the alternative, which is staying behind and potentially facing death or at least no progress for the individual or for their family.
Now, does Texas have any recourse there? The Governor Greg Abbott calls this an invasion there. Is there anything from a state perspective that they can do to try to slow down the migration into Texas?
That's an excellent question. So we remember, of course, the migrant buses to New York City. So we have the arrival, and then we have a kind of shifting or a pushing of individuals once they have arrived. What Texas and Governor Abbott in particular has tried to do is through this Operation Lone Star. He's saying, this is my state, this is our space. Let's block migrants from crossing the US-Mexico border. And so what we have now is a little bit of pushback from Judge Ezra saying, maybe you can't just do that without any kind of federal authority. Maybe you can't just put hard plastic and razor wire out there in the river. Maybe Texas, although we have United States, right, and each state has their own little sovereignty, there's still a United States and we all still follow federal law. So I think Governor Abbott is flexing the possibilities that he might have under this Operation Lone Star in blocking the border with a hard plastic for 3 football fields. And you can imagine a river, right? So you've got this much closure. I'm not really sure that that's particularly prohibitive.
Yeah, that is so interesting there, and really just showcases the divide there of many that they're pro-migration or against it. It's a real historic moment in our country here as we are seeing some of the ramifications. You mentioned there New York City there where the mayor, it was so interesting. Did you hear this with the mayor talking about, they are having a crisis here with the migrants that are in New York City and really trying to plead to say that, they need help from the federal side as well.
Yeah, so that was the town hall last night, and it was quite a ruckus. And basically, I think the issue is space occupancy, right? So in New York City, there's a crunch for space. People need hospitalization, people need housing. And what's happening now when people are not issued work permits is they cannot really do much for their own selves in terms of progressing for their livelihood. So most people who are able and capable want a work permit. They want to fill the labor market need in industry, in businesses, and then they can support their families, send their kids to school, have a house, basic human rights. And so what's happening in New York City right now, as the mayor's reaching out for the Biden administration to provide more federal funding, which might happen and be helpful in the short term for the housing crisis, let's say. But a greater issue, I think, really is the issue of the work permits and allowing individuals a capacity to self-sustain for a longer period of time.
Yeah, that is indeed there a topic that we are going to continue to be talking about. And as we get closer to the election, obviously it is going to be a major issue there for the candidates. We'd love to have you on as we get closer to that moment to really break down immigration as well. But Elaine Wood, thanks so much for coming on here and giving us your point of view and really just a great perspective what's going on there in Texas and beyond. We always appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Always wonderful.